Welcome to War Bios, the podcast that delves into the intricacies of military history's most pivotal battles. I'm your host, General Biography, and today we're embarking on an examination of one of the most decisive naval engagements in World War II, the Battle of the Philippine Sea. This epic clash, fought from June 19 to 20, 1944, was a testament to the evolving nature of warfare at sea, showcasing the strategic importance of air power and the tactical nuances of carrier-based combat. As we set the stage for this pivotal battle, let's journey back to the early months of 1944. The Allies were gaining momentum in the Pacific theater, having secured key victories at Midway and Guadalcanal. The Japanese, however, were determined to maintain their grip on the region, and their military leaders were busy devising a new strategy to counter the growing American threat. On January 15, 1944, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the commander-in-chief of the combined fleet, issued a directive outlining Japan's new defensive perimeter in the Pacific. This perimeter would stretch from the Marshall Islands in the east to the Indonesian archipelago in the west, with the Mariana Islands, including Saipan and Guam, serving as a crucial bulwark against American advances. In the months leading up to June 1944, both sides were engaged in a flurry of activity. The Japanese were desperately trying to repair their depleted naval air power, while the U.S. was conducting a series of raids and reconnaissance missions to gather intelligence on Japanese forces in the region. On May 11, 1944, U.S. aircraft from the carrier USS Bunker Hill conducted a raid on the Japanese base at Saipan, providing valuable insight into the enemy's defenses. The attack also marked the beginning of a sustained American campaign to weaken Japanese air power in the Marianas, paving the way for the eventual invasion of Saipan. As we explore the origins of this conflict, it becomes clear that the Battle of the Philippine Sea was not just another naval engagement, but a clash of strategic visions and tactical innovations. The Japanese sought to exploit their experience with land-based air power, while the Americans relied on the mobility and striking capability of their carrier task forces. This confrontation would ultimately determine the course of the war in the Pacific, as the two sides vied for control of the seas and the skies. The historical context of the Battle of the Philippine Sea is also deeply tied to the broader strategic landscape of World War II. The Allies were making gains in Europe, with the D-Day invasion of Normandy set to take place just a few days after the battle. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, the U.S. was pushing forward with its island-hopping campaign, bypassing heavily fortified Japanese strongholds and striking at the enemy's vulnerable flanks. The capture of the Marshall Islands in February 1944 had provided the Americans with a vital stepping stone for their advance on the Marianas, and the impending invasion of Saipan would mark a significant milestone in the campaign to liberate the Pacific. As we delve deeper into the story of the Battle of the Philippine Sea, it's essential to consider the key figures involved. Admiral Raymond Spruance, commander of the Fifth Fleet, played a pivotal role in shaping American strategy in the Pacific. His cautious approach would ultimately prove decisive in the battle to come. On the Japanese side, Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa, commander of the Mobile Fleet, was determined to use his forces to devastating effect against the Americans. The stage was set for a clash of titans, with the fate of the Pacific theater hanging precariously in the balance. With the historical context and precursors to the battle now established, we're poised to delve into the heart of our story, the events that transpired during those fateful days in June 1944. The operational details, tactical decisions, and strategic consequences of the Battle of the Philippine Sea will be our focus as we move forward. As we now delve into the heart of the story, it becomes clear that the Battle of the Philippine Sea was a masterclass in carrier-based warfare. The U.S. Fifth Fleet, under the command of Admiral Raymond Spruance, had been tasked with supporting the invasion of Saipan, a key island in the Mariana chain. Meanwhile, the Japanese Mobile Fleet, led by Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa, sought to exploit their experience with land-based air power and crush the American naval presence in the region. The battle began on June 19, 1944, as Japanese aircraft from the islands of Guam and Rota launched a series of attacks against the U.S. fleet. However, the Americans were well prepared, having established a robust air defense system that included radar-directed anti-aircraft fire and combat air patrols. The Japanese raids were met with fierce resistance, and their losses were staggering. By the end of the day, the Japanese had lost over 300 aircraft, while the Americans had suffered relatively minor damage. One of the most significant factors contributing to the American success was the effectiveness of their radar systems. The U.S. Navy had developed a sophisticated radar network that allowed them to detect and track incoming Japanese aircraft at long range. This enabled the Americans to scramble their fighter planes in time to intercept the enemy, resulting in a significant advantage in the air. As the battle raged on, the U.S. fleet continued to support the invasion of Saipan, with warships and carrier-based aircraft providing firepower and air cover for the troops ashore. The Japanese, meanwhile, were struggling to come to terms with the scale of their losses. Admiral Osawa's plan to use his land-based air power to devastating effect had backfired, and his forces were now on the defensive. The turning point of the battle came on June 20, 1944, when American aircraft launched a series of strikes against the Japanese fleet. The attacks were highly effective, sinking 2 Japanese carriers and damaging several other ships. The Japanese were forced to retreat, leaving behind a trail of wreckage and debris. The aftermath of the Battle of the Philippine Sea was significant, with far-reaching consequences for the course of the war in the Pacific. The Japanese had suffered a crushing defeat, losing hundreds of aircraft and several key ships. The Americans, on the other hand, had emerged victorious, having secured a vital foothold in the Mariana Islands. As we reflect on the events of those fateful days in June 1944, it becomes clear that the Battle of the Philippine Sea was a pivotal moment in the history of World War II. The battle marked a significant shift in the balance of power in the Pacific, with the Americans gaining the upper hand and the Japanese struggling to recover from their losses. The strategic implications of the battle were also profound. The U.S. had demonstrated its ability to project power across vast distances, using its carrier-based air power to devastating effect. The Japanese, on the other hand, had been forced to confront the limitations of their own military strategy, which relied heavily on land-based air power and defensive tactics. The Japanese had suffered a crushing defeat, losing hundreds of aircraft and several key ships, including the carriers Taiho and Shokaku. The Americans, on the other hand, had emerged victorious, having secured a vital foothold in the Mariana Islands. The significance of this victory cannot be overstated. The capture of Saipan, Guam, and Tinian provided the United States with a strategic location for air bases, allowing them to launch bombing raids against the Japanese mainland. This marked a significant shift in the balance of power in the Pacific as the Americans gained the upper hand and the Japanese struggled to recover from their losses. In the months that followed, the U.S. continued to push forward, invading the islands of Peleliu and Iwo Jima. The Japanese, however, were determined to resist, and the battles for these islands would prove to be some of the bloodiest of the war. As Admiral Chester Nimitz noted, the Battle of the Philippine Sea was a decisive victory, but it was only the beginning of a long and difficult campaign. One of the key consequences of the Battle of the Philippine Sea was the depletion of Japan's naval air power. The loss of hundreds of experienced pilots and aircraft would prove to be a blow from which the Japanese would never fully recover. As historian Samuel Eliot Morison noted, the Japanese Navy never regained its former strength and carrier-based air power, and this weakness would ultimately contribute to its defeat. In addition to its strategic significance, the Battle of the Philippine Sea also had a profound impact on the personal stories of the men who fought in it. For example, Lieutenant Commander Edwin Layton, a U.S. Navy intelligence officer, played a crucial role in predicting Japanese air attacks and helping to prepare the American fleet for battle. His bravery and quick thinking would earn him the Navy Cross, and his story serves as a testament to the courage and determination of the men who fought in this pivotal engagement. As we reflect on the events of those fateful days in June 1944, it becomes clear that the Battle of the Philippine Sea was a turning point in the history of World War II. The battle marked a significant shift in the balance of power in the Pacific, with the Americans gaining the upper hand and the Japanese struggling to recover from their losses. In the words of historian John Toland, the Battle of the Philippine Sea was a masterpiece of naval warfare, a testament to the skill and bravery of the American sailors and airmen who fought in it. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.